If you think toilet paper is harmless, you're not going to like what comes next. Because in Britain right now, the rolls we trust every single day are hiding problems that go far beyond comfort. Lab tests, dermatology guidance, and shrinkflation reports reveal a pattern we were never meant to notice. Eco claims that don't hold up premium rolls, that quietly give you less and scented products that can irritate the most sensitive skin on your body. Most households buy the same brands out of habit. We assume they're safe, gentle, and honest. But the deeper we looked, the more the picture shifted. Some bamboo papers weren't really bamboo. Some luxury rolls were redesigned and left shoppers disappointed. Even trusted supermarkets were caught shrinking their packs while charging the same price. And the worst part? You only realize something's wrong after you feel it. Today, we break down 7 toilet paper names and types every UK shopper should think twice about before those small daily choices turn into much bigger problems. 1. Bazoo. If there is one brand that captures the gap between what we hope for and what we actually get, it is Bazoo. On the shelf, it looks like the perfect choice for anyone trying to live a little lighter. Soft earth tones on the packaging, clean typography promises of bamboo, and the comforting idea that you are choosing something tree-free. Many shoppers paid more for that feeling, especially in the past few years, as the push for greener household staples grew stronger. Yet the first cracks appeared the moment independent testing stepped in March 2024, which carried out a detailed fibre analysis on 5 bamboo toilet rolls sold in Britain. The expectation was simple: if a roll is marketed as bamboo, bamboo should be the primary ingredient. For Bazoo, the result fell far short of that. Only about 1/4 of its fibre content came from bamboo. The rest came from hardwood pulps such as eucalyptus and acacia, the very materials many eco-conscious shoppers thought they were avoiding when they made the switch. The numbers were plain. The promise was not. Take a moment to think about the experience of using an eco roll. The sheet feels a little firmer, a bit more matte, almost like it was crafted from something natural and untouched. Many people associate that texture with bamboo's reputation for sustainability. Yet the lab test shows a very different story beneath the surface. What you feel is not what you were sold. The material in your hand is largely the same kind of wood fibre used in ordinary paper products, only wrapped in a greener narrative. This is where the disappointment settles in. Consumers who picked up Bazoo were not looking for luxury. They were looking for responsibility. They paid extra for a product that promised to protect forests by stepping away from traditional wood pulp. Instead, they unknowingly supported more of the same. The emotional sting does not come from performance. It comes from intention. People tried to do better. The product did not meet them halfway. The financial side of the story matters just as much. Eco rolls are not cheap. For many households, buying them is a small monthly sacrifice justified by a larger purpose. If the environmental claim collapses, the value collapses with it. You are left with a product that behaves like any other mid-range toilet paper, but demands more from your wallet. In a cost-of-living climate where every pound counts, that mismatch feels heavier than ever. What makes this case even more telling is the wider pattern it hints at within the industry. Bamboo has become a powerful marketing word. It suggests purity, renewal, lower carbon impact. Yet independent testing showed that fibre content across several bamboo brands did not match the message. Even certification bodies later acknowledged concerns in the bamboo supply chain. When organizations designed to verify sustainability have to revisit their own approvals, the consumer's trust sits on unsteady ground. Bazoo becomes more than one disappointing roll. It becomes an example of how easily green language can drift ahead of the product it describes. Brands know that shoppers want to do the right thing. They know people respond to natural colors, earthy icons, and promises of a smaller footprint. When the product cannot live up to those expectations, the gap becomes personal. It affects both the planet-minded shopper and the budget-tight household. As we move on, the picture widens. Bazoo was not the only bamboo-labeled roll that struggled to match its claims. The next brand deepens that concern and shows just how far the gap can stretch when marketing outpaces the material inside the pack. 2. Bamboo. Bamboo is the moment this investigation stops being surprising and starts feeling uncomfortable. Because unlike other eco-rolls, the problem with bamboo appears almost immediately once you look past the packaging. In March 2024, which ran a fibre analysis on several bamboo toilet rolls sold across Britain, one result stood apart. Bamboo's sheets contained only about 2.7% bamboo-like fibres, the lowest bamboo content in the entire test. Everything else came from other woods. So the roll marketed as the pure bamboo alternative was in truth almost entirely something else. And that fact changes the way you see the product in your hand. The slightly crisp sheet, the muted colour, the faintly fibrous feel, all of it suggests bamboo. That texture almost convinces you before you even read the label. Yet the lab shows there was barely any bamboo there to begin with. What feels natural becomes a kind of mirage. The material guides you to trust the brand even when the substance does not support the story. This is where the emotional damage begins. People didn't choose bamboo because it was pretty or luxurious. They chose it because they thought it was responsible. They believed bamboo meant fewer trees cut down, lower environmental strain, and a cleaner supply chain. Many households switched to bamboo as an ethical upgrade, spending more each month to support a better choice. When that choice turns out to be built on a fibre content of just 2.7%, the disappointment is more than practical. It is personal. The financial side deepens that feeling. Eco-rolls cost more often, significantly more. For families budgeting carefully, every premium purchase must carry real value. With bamboo, the premium price did not match the material. Shoppers were paying extra for bamboo they never truly received. In an era where weekly supermarket bills already demand sacrifices, discovering that your attempt to do the right thing came with little real benefit leaves a bruise. It is not waste. It is misplaced trust. And this is not a case where the performance makes up for the gap. If the fibre content is largely conventional wood pulp, then the roll behaves like many mid-range papers on the market. The softness, the strength, the durability, all sit within a familiar range. What you pay extra for is the bamboo identity. Once the identity dissolves, the value dissolves too. You are left holding something that feels ordinary, but was sold under extraordinary claims. Bamboo also exposes a deeper structural problem in this industry. Bamboo has become a powerful marketing symbol in the UK, a word that signals fast growth, renewability, and guilt-free consumption. But as the Witch investigation showed, that symbol is sometimes stronger than the substance. Even certification bodies later reviewed elements of the bamboo supply chain after concerns surfaced. When watchdogs, analysts, and certifiers all need to revisit the same issue, shoppers can sense the larger instability beneath the surface. This instability affects more than the product on the shelf. It affects the confidence of the consumer who goes out of their way to make a better choice. When someone buys bamboo, they believe they are stepping out of the old model away from tree-based pulp and towards a cleaner alternative. Learning that the material barely reflects that promise leaves a kind of quiet sting. It feels as though the product used the shopper's good intentions as part of its marketing strategy. And that more than anything is what lingers. As we move forward, the story shifts again. Because after this scrutiny, one brand chose to respond not by defending itself, but by changing its face entirely. And that leads us into the next segment. 3. Naked Sprout. Some brands disappoint you. Others leave you unsure what you trusted in the first place. Naked Sprout belongs to the second group. For many households, its plain packaging and stripped-back look signaled honesty. People chose it because it seemed simple, clean, and safe. They wanted a roll without perfumes, dyes, or unnecessary softness boosters. That choice felt especially reassuring for anyone with sensitive skin. Dermatologists often remind patients that scented or highly processed toilet paper can worsen irritation, so a minimal product sounded like the responsible path. When a brand presents itself as natural and transparent, shoppers expect the material inside the sheet to live up to that promise. The problem is that the purity people assumed didn't hold up under testing. In March 2024, which analysed several bamboo toilet rolls sold in the UK, Naked Sprouts roll contained only about 4% bamboo fibres. The remainder came from other wood sources. The brand that appeared the most modest and trustworthy followed the same pattern uncovered in the wider bamboo category: strong environmental language supported by very little bamboo content. That discovery unsettled the very customers who chose the product because they wanted fewer additives and fewer surprises. Experts voiced similar caution. Environmental analysts interviewed after the test explained that bamboo labels are not tightly regulated, and many companies rely on blended pulp streams. One specialist summarized the issue plainly: when fiber content isn't disclosed in detail, the appearance of sustainability can drift far ahead of the reality. For shoppers who bought Naked Sprout to avoid the complexity of the industry hearing, that kind of assessment feels like a quiet shock. They weren't looking for perfection, they were looking for truth. The emotional impact runs deeper than disappointment. Naked Sprout carried a look that felt almost moral. No glossy finish, no exaggerated claims, no cheerful mascots or bright colors. People associated that design with honesty. Finding out that the material inside did not match the expectation creates a brittle kind of doubt. It isn't just the fiber mix. It is the erosion of confidence in a brand built on being plain and open. Soon after these questions emerged, the company reappeared under a new name, Naked Paper. The emphasis shifted from bamboo to recycled materials. The tone softened. The packaging changed. Nothing explosive, nothing theatrical, just a quiet transformation that left long-time buyers wondering what had happened. A rebrand is not wrongdoing. It can signal growth or redirection. But for customers already unsettled by the test results, the timing added another layer of uncertainty. They were left unsure whether the original product had ever been what they believed it to be. Health concerns fold into this confusion. People often move toward natural-looking toilet paper because they fear irritation from fragrances, lotions, or bleach residues. When the trust in a brand's simplicity falters, that comfort disappears too. A shopper who once felt safe picking the plain brown roll now has to question whether the material inside is any clearer than the glossy packets on the opposite shelf. That doubt lingers each time they reach for a new pack. Naked Sprout's story isn't sensational. It is quieter than that and perhaps more unsettling because of it. It shows how a product can look honest, sound honest, and still leave gaps between the message and the material. It also shows how brands respond in different ways when scrutiny arrives. Some defend, some adjust. Some return with a new name and a new direction, hoping the next chapter feels cleaner than the last. As we move on, the bamboo story closes and another pattern emerges. The next brand doesn't hide behind eco claims. It carries decades of loyalty, soft imagery, and a price that has climbed while the roll itself has quietly shrunk. Feature Andrex. Some names feel untouchable. Andrex is one of them. For decades it has lived in British homes as a symbol of softness and comfort. People buy it without thinking, trusting the puppy on the pack more than any marketing line. That trust is what makes this part so difficult. Over the years, the roll itself has changed. Sheet counts fell. Packs stayed the same size. Prices moved quietly upward. The softness promise remained, but the value beneath it thinned out. The shift wasn't loud. It wasn't messy. It was gradual, almost invisible, slipping past busy households who assumed a familiar brand would never take shortcuts. In 2023, The Times reported another reduction in sheet numbers. It wasn't the first. It followed a pattern of smaller rolls, sold for higher prices, packaged in a way that encouraged shoppers to focus on softness rather than the contents inside. Each cut saved the company money while pushing customers toward a higher price per sheet. Andrex never said this was part of its identity, yet this became the identity people felt most sharply. The sensory change is subtle but real. Older users remember a roll that felt dense and generous. The modern sheet feels lighter, quicker to thin out in the hand, more delicate than the image suggests. The packaging still carries the warmth of the puppy, the gentle colors, the language of care. The contrast between memory and reality forms its own discomfort. The brand that once offered abundance now feels stretched, trimmed, and calculated. Economists often describe shrinkflation as a tactic that relies on habit. People return to familiar brands because they feel safe. They don't count the sheets. They don't measure thickness. They trust the pattern of years. Toilet paper becomes the perfect target because it's essential, private, and rarely questioned. Consumers notice price. They don't always notice quantity. Andrex held that advantage for a long time. The emotional impact lands later. It arrives when shoppers realize the product they've supported for years no longer behaves the way it used to. They feel a small sting of foolishness for not spotting the change. They feel pressure from the rising cost of living and frustration at paying more for less. It is not betrayal. It is erosion. Steady, quiet, wearing down the confidence people once carried so effortlessly. And then comes the moment at home. Picture a family trying to manage their weekly budget. They pick up a big pack of Andrex because they believe it lasts longer. They want to stretch every roll. They want a brand they don't have to second guess. They bring it through the door after a long day, place the shopping on the counter, and hope the next few weeks feel a little easier. They tear open the pack. The rolls look familiar, yet feel smaller in the hand. The sheets unwind faster than expected. Halfway through the week, the roll they thought would survive several days is already thinning on the holder. And a quiet question forms. How long has this been happening without me noticing? Another follows. If this trusted brand shrinks its product, what else in the house has changed without my permission? These questions linger because they touch something soft and vulnerable, the need to feel in control of the essentials that keep a home steady. Andrex doesn't spark outrage, it sparks doubt. A slow, subtle doubt that bends the relationship between consumer and brand. Loyalty once masked the changes. Now the changes stand plainly in view, and the loyalty feels heavier than it should. The next brand plays a different game. It leans on luxury and softness, not nostalgia. Yet the outcome leaves households feeling just as shortchanged. 5 Cushionly Quilted. A premium product carries its own promise. When a brand sells softness as its identity, people expect that softness to be real. Cushionly Quilted built its reputation on that expectation. The embossed pattern, the gentle colors, the koala mascot, everything pointed toward comfort. The price did too. So when the most recent version reached British homes, the disappointment felt sharper than usual. In August 2024, the grocer reported on Cushion's relaunch of its quilted roll under the softest ever message. The idea was clear: the brand was elevating comfort, making the sheet more cushioned, more padded, more luxurious in the hand. Yet early shopper feedback did not match the claim. People described the new rolls as narrower, no longer soft, and exceptionally thin. A premium relaunch met with reactions that pointed in the opposite direction. The shift becomes obvious once you imagine how a quilted sheet should behave. It should feel plush at the first touch. The layers should sit gently on each other with a small cushion of air between them. It should fold without collapsing into a flat strip. It should hold shape rather than wilt. Softness in a quilted roll is not just marketing, it is physical form. That form seemed missing for many shoppers. They reported thinner layers, a lighter hand feel, and a sheet that no longer delivered the padded sensation the brand was known for. This forms the core issue. Cushele doesn't depend on nostalgia or an eco-identity. It sells premium comfort. People buying quilted rolls want a step above the basics. They are willing to pay more because they expect something genuinely different, a roll that feels sturdier, lasts longer, and offers real softness. With the recent reformulation, that expectation clashed with the experience. A brand that promised abundance returned something that felt reduced. There is a financial sting in that mismatch. Quilted papers sit at the higher end of supermarket shelves. The price signals a product that should justify every extra pound. When thickness drops and softness becomes uncertain, the premium loses its footing. For households already balancing rising costs, paying more for a roll that feels closer to a mid-tier product creates a quiet frustration. It isn't dramatic. It sits at the back of the mind, returning each time the paper tears too quickly or finishes too soon. Comfort products also carry a subtle health expectation. Thicker cushioned layers often feel gentler on sensitive skin. When a roll thins out and requires more passes to achieve the same result, the experience becomes less comfortable. People who chose quilted paper for its soothing feel notice the difference most clearly. And when lotions or surface treatments are used to simulate softness, that can introduce its own small concerns for those who react poorly to additives. Softness does not always equal skin kindness, and the line between the two becomes blurred when a premium product no longer offers its signature cushion. Emotionally, the disappointment works in a different way than shrinkflation. With Andrex, the sting came from loyalty eroding. With Cushele, it is the feeling of paying for luxury and receiving something ordinary. Households expecting comfort instead met fragility. They weren't misled by nostalgia. They were misled by texture and tone, by the promise of a quilted roll that no longer felt quilted. This segment sits in the wider pattern of the industry's dependence on perception. Embossing can create the illusion of thickness. Soft imagery can suggest padding even when the sheet is thin. Color mascot and language all push the mind toward a sense of comfort, even when the material doesn't match. Cushele quilted embodies that principle more clearly than most. It shows how easily softness can be sold and how quickly it can slip away. And if a luxury roll struggled to deliver comfort, the next one struggled to deliver honesty. Because even supermarkets with strong reputations have made changes that left their customers questioning the value inside the pack. 6. Waitrose. Some supermarkets earn a reputation that feels almost immovable. Waitrose is one of them. It is the place people go when they want quality without noise reliability, without the need to double-check labels. That image has held for years, which is why what happened to its own label, Lou Roll, unsettled so many shoppers. In August 2024, the grocer reported that Waitrose had reduced the sheet count on its toilet rolls. The packs looked the same. The price sat in its familiar range. Yet the roll inside carried less paper. Customers noticed, and the backlash grew quickly. The supermarket defended the change as better value for money, but many of its own shoppers disagreed. The phrase did not match the experience in their hands. The problem becomes clearer when you imagine what Waitrose represents. Its design is quiet, almost comforting. The muted colors, the steady layout, the impression of consistency, all of it builds trust. People pick up a pack expecting the content to reflect the brand's standards. They expect a roll that feels stable, dependable, worth the slightly higher price. When they instead find fewer sheets that trust fractures. Shrinkflation is not new. Brands have made similar changes for years. But when it arrives at a supermarket known for its standards, it strikes a more sensitive nerve. Shoppers rely on Waitrose to filter out the corner-cutting common elsewhere. They pay a bit more because they believe they won't be caught off guard. Seeing that belief slip feels heavier than the loss of a few sheets. The financial weight of the change matters. Households carefully choose which items they buy at Waitrose and which they buy elsewhere. Own-label loo roll is often one of the items people justify as worth the comfort. It is a practical treat, something that should hold up better and last longer. When a product like that shrinks, the value proposition falls apart. A roll that used to last several days now unwinds faster. The price remains stable, but the usefulness does not. In a cost-of-living climate, that mismatch sits quietly in the back of the mind. The sensory difference arrives quickly. A shopper picks up the roll expecting a familiar density. Instead, it feels lighter, slightly smaller. The layers unwind with less resistance. The sheet thins sooner. The first note of doubt appears. Has something changed? That question grows with each day. The bin fills faster and the pack empties earlier than expected. The roll still carries the Waitrose look, but the Waitrose substance feels further away. This leads into a deeper emotional ripple. Waitrose has long stood as a symbol of higher standards. When its products cut back, people feel exposed. They wonder if they misjudged the supermarket's values. They wonder if paying more has protected them less than they assumed. Trust in essentials is fragile. Once cracked, it takes time to rebuild. Picture a familiar scene. A shopper stops by Waitrose on the way home, tired after a full day. They choose the own-label loo roll because they want something that won't let them down. They bring it into the house, place the shopping on the counter, and believe this pack will last well through the week. They tear the plastic, lift the first roll, and feel the difference instantly. Smaller, lighter, less sure. Then comes the unwelcome thought. If Waitrose is shrinking its essentials, what else in the house isn't what it used to be? The question lingers long after the roll is finished. Waitrose isn't alone in making these adjustments. The entire market is under pressure, and private label goods have begun to adopt the same tactics once associated with major brands. Shrinkflation is no longer a rare strategy. It is a pattern woven through the industry, hidden behind familiar packaging and gentle language. And if the supermarket known for quality can slip into that pattern, the final stop on this list shows an even larger concern, the kind that touches not just value, but the health and comfort of the skin itself. 7-segment scented, lotion-infused toilet rolls. This last one doesn't fail in your wallet. It fails on your skin. Among all the problems we've uncovered so far, this category touches the human body in a way none of the others do. Scented rolls, colored rolls, lotion-infused rolls. They look comforting on the shelf, but the experience at home often tells a different story. British medical guidance has been consistent for years. NHS advice for common anal and vulval skin conditions warns against using toilet paper with fragrances, dyes, or added lotions because these additives can aggravate irritation. Dermatology specialists also remind patients with sensitive skin that plain white unscented paper is the safest choice. The message sounds simple, yet these scented and lotion-coated rolls continue to sell, carried by packaging that whispers softness, calm and care. The promise begins with scent. Lavender, chamomile, citrus, anything designed to create the feeling of cleanliness. A pleasant smell suggests hygiene, even gentleness. But every fragrance comes from chemical compounds that linger on the skin. For someone already dealing with dryness or sensitivity, those traces can turn mild irritation into something more persistent. A roll that feels fresh in the hand can leave discomfort long after the bathroom door closes. Lotion-coated rolls follow a similar pattern. The words aloe shea butter and silky touch create an image of relief. People imagine a soothing glide, a balm-like quality, a softness that protects the skin. Yet the lotion is usually a surface treatment, not a meaningful layer. It spreads unevenly and can leave a residue. When the paper thins and requires more wiping to achieve the same result, the contact becomes harsher, not gentler. What looks like comfort often magnifies the problem. Colored rolls bring their own risk. Dyes are unnecessary in a product used on sensitive tissue. NHS guidance includes them in the same category of things to avoid. People rarely think about dyes because the roll looks harmless. Colour signals, neatness, even premium quality. But for someone prone to dermatitis or hemorrhoids, these pigments can add to irritation without any added benefit. The emotional weight of this issue sits in silence. Unlike shrinkflation or misleading claims, irritation is private. People don't talk about it. They blame themselves. They change diet, switch soap, buy creams, and never consider that the source might be the roll they believed was helping them. A scented or lotion-infused product gives the impression of extra care. When that impression turns out to be the cause of discomfort, the realization stings in a deeper way. Picture a simple moment. Someone chooses a roll with aloe because they want softness. They bring it home believing it will soothe the area that feels delicate after a long day. They trust the smell, the colors, the idea of gentle treatment. Days pass and the irritation grows instead of settling. They assume stress is to blame, or diet, or age. They never look at the roll because the packaging promised kindness. Only later, when they change to a plain, unscented paper and the discomfort fades, does the question appear. How long have I been making this worse without knowing that question sits quietly heavier than any price difference? The wider pattern shows why this happens. Additives give manufacturers a way to sell premium comfort without improving the core material. Scent masks cheaper pulp. Lotion creates a surface gloss. Color adds shelf appeal. None of these additions guarantee comfort where it matters most. They create a feeling that replaces substance, and that feeling dissolves the moment irritation starts. And after seeing how easily additives slip into everyday essentials, we end with a simple truth: the safest choices are often the plainest. Plain white unscented paper offers exactly what it claims, without the extras that complicate something that should be straightforward. This final lesson closes the list, but it also opens a broader thought that comfort isn't always what packaging suggests, and that awareness is often the best protection a household can have. When you look back at all 7 names and types, a quiet pattern emerges. None of these stories are loud. None of them explode on headlines. They slip into homes through familiar packaging, gentle words and habits we stopped questioning. That's how everyday essentials end up changing without us noticing, and how trust starts to thin long before a roll does. This isn't about fear, it's about awareness. Small choices shape comfort, value, and health far more than we realize. And the truth is simple: the safest products are often the ones that speak the least. No perfumes, no claims, no grand promises, just paper that does its job. If today's video helped you see what's beneath the surface, then it's done its work. Keep your eyes open, stay selective, and protect the essentials that protect your home. Sometimes a plain white roll is the clearest choice of all.
This video does not promote division within the United States or encourage segregation. All content is presented for the purpose of exploration, analysis, and fostering discussion based on current events, public sentiment, and social trends. We fully respect the United States Constitution and all federal regulations. If today analysis made you think, drop a comment so we can keep the conversations going. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell so you will never miss our next independent deep dive.